It's wonderful to be here. I'm very touched that I'm reading with Dominic, who I've never met before, although we live in the same city. And, you know, McSweeney's has done so much for poetry in America, and especially in the Bay Area. It's a pleasure to be on the same bill, and to be, in fact, warming up for Dominic. Thank you, Ilyusha, in particular, for inviting me and hosting me and feeding me. I'm going to read a couple of poems from each section of this book, which was written by a somewhat younger version of myself. And then I'm going to read some more recent poems. This book, Orphan Fire, starts with a sequence of poems called Orphan Fire, which is sort of my attempt to rewrite the book of Genesis to my own liking. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from Orphan Fire. 1. Not a god's weapon of mass destruction, just a flint spark driven up a dry hillside, on Ararat, of course, let into the stables like a stray animal to share at the trough, until an intruder stealing a horse saw it and thought he could make it work for him down in the brothels of humanity. Now anyone can touch it, junkies, canteen cooks, and poets, and for them it consumes its own origins, air, eagerness, and brightness, twice orphaned by gods and by earth, just to give bodies of clay an hour's warmth. 2. This poem is a response to a gorgeous poem by Wallace Stevens called Martial Cadenza, which is my favorite Stevens poems of all. Not everyone reads it, so I highly recommend it to you. I should have brought it, in fact, as my poem is just a footnote to it. Constant fire passing into the created world loses track of its source and destroys its end, coming to know 3 kinds of life form: pain of landscape, pain of language, pain of love. A sea becomes a river, a cry becomes a word, a vivid thing in the air around you. 3, this has a Hebrew letter bet as the title, and this is sort of the subject of the poem also. Bet is the first letter of the Hebrew Bible. Bet. So the closest you get to the first cause is this thirst. The nearest you get to purity is the pain of division, the hook of a nurse's arm pulling you out, the hook of a harpoon pulling you in. The line of the poem is a quotation from the Russian writer Alexander Herzen. If history is the autobiography of a madman, some senior doctor may be well informed as to the nature of the patient's delusions, but we, the next of kin, are quite blind. We just know if not well watched, he may drink a bottle of bleach to purify mankind. But if orderlies wrest the bottle from him, he'll sink into melancholia. Markets will flag. People will start hoarding, and no one will turn up for weekly discussion groups on electoral reform or atonality in music. He'll grow sluggish, filled with loathing. Analysis, if flawed, has been a mainstay for us in mitigating his worst excesses in relations with his Lord and liberty. At times he seems to grasp that his desire to possess her is fated sadly never to be wholly satisfied. But he'll never conquer a fear of being taken from bed at night and put out like a dog. At times he can name pursuits that give delight. Building with stones of unequal weight, expeditions into the wilderness, rescue of beauties, long sums that equal naught. Since we were talking about translation earlier today, this is a little poem called Translation. Patroclus put on the armor of his good friend Achilles to go out on the battlefield. Your words, a bright shield, lending cover and honor, will save neither one of us. Just for fun, I don't know if it's my poem, but since I mentioned this afternoon in our conversation a recent flirtation with the Maya language, tzotzil, I'm going to read this poem that I was working on the other day, which probably isn't finished, but you can tell what world it comes from. Incantation to time. So tzotzil, for those of you who weren't there this afternoon, is one of the languages spoken in the highlands of Chiapas in southern Mexico. Incantation to time. You, born before the word, elder brother of marks and signs, I come with roses, with lilies, clove pinks, wild chamomile. Let me borrow your many masks so that I may live long years amid the coral. My animal spirit is in pain. My animal spirit lost its footing in the hills, weary beyond words, worn to the very last link of the chain. Let me have all your toes, all your fingers, to feel the way back to my animal cave. Take me back to the cave where my spirit lives. Touch my spirit with a rose-fragrant cloth. Lift me up to that rose. Let me rest in the shade of the vine, ancient feeder of souls, guardian of coral reefs, bearer of time. Draw a circle, a square, around the tiger, the jaguar. Lock up the wolf, the coyote, the fox, and the weasel. I bring soft green leaves for the hands and feet of the one who sees from far away through dreams. Revive my spirit with pine pitch, with tree sap, rosewater, fir cones, and laurel. Carry me, hold me, and my tiger and jaguar. This is all I have to bother you with in the name of the flowers. Let my animal live many years in the pages of the book, in its letters, its pictures, across the whole surface of the earth. I'm going to read, if I can find them, yes. So I don't know if you know, an ether screen is an actual physical thing that's lowered between that separates the head of the person being operated on from the rest of the body, which is kept sterile. And the head is the part that the anesthetist works on. Ether screen. On one side lies the battlefield, and on the other, head command. On one side, your inert physique, on the other, res cognitans. A drape falls between the mind and matter, fantasy and flesh. A curtain drawn so that a wound be disentangled from a wish. You will bleed without a scream and breathe without trying to. A doll extended from the dream an anesthetist picked out for you. Waking, you find your own head pressed against a window pane, waiting for flesh to get out of bed and let you come back in again. This is called Pain Fellow, also a literal designation of someone who worked in this hospital. I guess there are fellowships in all areas of medicine, and pain management is one of them, so people kept referring to the Pain Fellow. You wanted him to be around. You wake into hurt, dead space drawn in and pushed out. On fire, every nerve and joint conveys annihilating news. Climb higher, tapping each tread on the stairs with blind wordlets as you rise. From mild to moderate and severe, win your morphine like a prize. Every motion chafes and wounds. 1 to 10, the nurse will ask. The pain fellow is off on rounds. Try not to breathe until he's back. He'll talk your pain back to you like a runaway animal, a child that turned hateful when it grew and burnt its rage up running wild.